Solana's DeFi TVL dropped 4.5% last month, which prompted many to argue that the bull run was already over, and that only BTC would ever make a new all-time high again. But people forgot that June is typically marked the bottom for alts during a bull run. So this video is for everyone asking if Altseason is over before it even began, whether they missed the boat again, and whether BTC will just top out and leave our altcoin bags in the dust. Alright, before we get to exactly why Altseason is not over, here's the hard data that says Altseason hasn't even started, and why assets like Sol are in a far better position this cycle than last. Now for starters, the search term buy Bitcoin is trending right now, and that's exactly what we'd expect to see before retail comes piling in to push BTC dominance to its peak, and we'll dive into that indicator in just a moment. Secondly, the world's largest companies are coming on-chain, and mainstream media is reporting on behemoths like JP Morgan and Visa, which are now launching their own crypto tokens. So even though it feels like we'll never again see Altseason like the previous cycles, due to issues like supply and dispersion, the facts disagree. Because unlike the complicated world of stock markets and overvalued US tech, getting ahead of the curve and being rightly positioned for Altseason is actually quite simple. All we really need to do is understand what the drivers are and what the key indicators are to watch out for. So, do me a quick favor and smash that like button and subscribe if you are new here, because Altseason is just starting and we have a lot to cover. Alright, let's unpack that, because there are plenty of people arguing that Altseason's over and it's back to McDonald's for the degens. But indicators like Bitcoin dominance and the sentiment shift from the last few days indicate that it hasn't even started. In as few words as possible, according to Arthur Hayes, Altseason hasn't started yet because BTC is still rising.
And I think in one of your interviews, you said Bitcoin dominance will hit 70%. And then that is when we might see the altcoin season coming. Is that the argument?
I still think that's going to happen.
70%.
We're about 65 now.
So still more outperformance in Bitcoin before we're not
in general. I mean, basically,
yet.
Bitcoin dominance is very predicated on ETH. So if ETH doesn't move, then it's very hard for that ratio to really move.
Now yes, the confusion around people claiming that Altseason finished already is somewhat understandable, with Sol DeFi TVL dropping below $9 billion last month. And the number of new tokens being launched has also seen a steep decline. We saw this playing out particularly around meme coins, which, to be fair, have been a large portion of Solana's activity. We saw a whole host of CT pundits asking if Altseason was cancelled forever. But actually what we're seeing unfold now is almost identical to what happened last cycle. BTC dominance was reaching a peak, and people were claiming that alts were dead forever. Alt prices started hitting new lows, just as we saw meme coins earlier this year and NFTs last cycle, because it seemed back then, as it does today, that altcoin holders had been outplayed by the Bitcoin maxis. The McDonald's memes started flowing once again, and then seemingly out of nowhere, BTC dominance started declining overnight. We saw immense rallies with coins running up to 40% per day. And if you're still hesitant to believe that sentiment has flipped massively in the last few days, just look at this. So what are those key indicators that we need to be looking out for when we're getting ready for Altseason? Well, to begin with, every cycle tends to follow recognizable patterns, and you're likely familiar with this graphic already. We move from a quiet accumulation phase into explosive growth, followed by steep dips, playing out in a remarkably similar pattern every time. Here's leading Bitcoin analyst Benjamin Cohen explaining what Bitcoin dominance and Altseason really looks like.
If you only went by what Twitter influencers told you, you probably would have assumed that we'd already be in our 700th alt season for this cycle. But what really alt season is it's the constant devaluation of Bitcoin dominance while the altcoin market is going up on its USD pair. If you look here at the last two alt seasons that we've had, we had one in 2017, and then of course we had one over here in late 2020 and early 2021. So this is what you would characterize as alt season. You will notice though that over the last few years, we have not seen this in any way. In fact, just like the 2018-2019 cycle, you can see that Bitcoin dominance has instead gone up. So if we look at this very closely, you can see you have your period where Bitcoin dominance collapses. That's what people call alt season, right? So this is alt season there in 2017. And then you also had an alt season here in 2021. And then you can see you have something different, right? You have this period where Bitcoin dominance goes up. Now that is not alt season, right? This period right here was not alt season, and this period has not been alt season. This is called Bitcoin season, right? And Bitcoin season is very different than altcoin season.
Okay, so alt season hasn't started yet, and it seems that with the recent regulatory developments and crypto's relative resilience to macroeconomic headwinds, like the wars and tariffs we saw, that we are finally ending Bitcoin season and entering that long-awaited uptrend for alts. Now, as capital starts moving away from BTC and into altcoins, this shift has historically aligned with the most lucrative time of the entire cycle. However, there is, unfortunately, a bitter pill to swallow here about alt season. Arthur Hayes explains why, unlike Solana, which is leading the way on various metrics, altcoins with no product market fit could indeed be doomed this cycle.
Well, I mean, I think that all your altcoins, most of them are probably not going to go up in price again because they don't have product market fit. They don't take any of the revenue and bring it back to the token holders. And so they're like high FDV, low float bullshit VC coins. And so they're not going to do very well. And that's why you've seen like down only for like, Barachain, maybe Modon, whatever launches. So these types of projects, these very hyped, big round, big fundraising round projects, it can be very hard for them to go up in price because they don't actually have any clients that spend money. But there are projects that are very good that have product market fit. People spend money. That money goes from the protocol to the token holders, and I think the small subset of products that do that, they're going to do very well.
So altcoin season is yet to start, and projects without product market fit are likely doomed. All we now have to do is figure out the when. So here's a really quick rundown of the stages of Bitcoin dominance from Lab of Crypto that gives us a sense of where we are in the cycle and when exactly alt season might be in full swing. The indicator is based on the historical behavior of Bitcoin dominance during various bull cycles, particularly the 2021 bull run. Currently, Bitcoin dominance is at around 65%. When Bitcoin dominance is in this gray zone, typically above 60%, Bitcoin is king, and capital remains concentrated in BTC. This indicates that alt season is largely inactive or dead for the time being. As BTC dominance drops into this zone below 60%, it signals that the market is heating up for altcoins. This is the time to start increasing exposure to high conviction large caps and narrative plays, as capital begins to look for more risk through rotations. Entering this green zone below 55% means that real momentum is building, and alt season is genuinely underway. Money is actively flowing from ETH to large and mid-cap altcoins. Then, as BTC dominance dips below into the orange zone that's below 50%, it suggests that altcoin dominance is really reaching its peak, and alt season is ending. Even though retail euphoria might be high at this point, with your Uber driver, your barber, and your normie friends asking you if it's a good time to get into crypto, this is actually a critical warning for anyone who's done their homework, because it means we'll be entering a phase of peak risk. And finally, this red zone where Bitcoin dominance is below 45% marks the most critical danger zone for us, because it historically marks the point of maximum froth and risk, where altcoins are overheated and things are weeks if not days away from crashing. Again, according to Lab of Crypto, this is the decisive signal to aggressively take profits, to de-risk, and to exit the most risky positions to preserve your capital. Right, so we understand how Bitcoin dominance works, but are there other indicators that alt season is about to take off? The answer is obviously yes. ETH breakouts, as we just saw, have historically been one of these. So here are 3 key indicators to watch if you are looking to make the most of alt season and learn when to go big and when to take profits. Firstly, watch Ethereum, not just Bitcoin. Alt season doesn't start with low caps. It typically begins when ETH breaks out majorly to the upside. Historically, alts have tended to flatline until Ethereum reaches new all-time highs and people start to rotate their profits in search of more upside in smaller caps. So, based on past cycles, we could conclude that no ETH rally would mean no alt season. But things are actually different this time round, because Solana has in many cases taken over that role from Ethereum and is arguably leading the charge in consumer adoption for a whole host of reasons. And that's why we need to understand rotations, because typically alt season comes in waves. Bitcoin pumps first before BTC dominance starts to drop, as we just saw. Capital then rotates to Ethereum, and large caps with strong retail support like Sol and XRP follow. And then finally the low caps go vertical. So, if ETH and Sol don't see major breakouts following a drop in BTC dominance, which we haven't seen yet, that means you're early. investors can still look to position themselves in assets like Sol ahead of upcoming rallies. And the newcomer to this cycle that really contributes to the likelihood of Solana outperforming is of course Solana's stablecoin Summer.
Crypto may finally be going mainstream, spurred in part by the billion-dollar public debut of Circle, the issuer of stablecoin USDC, and the passage of the stablecoin legislation drafted by the Senate, dubbed the Genius Act.
Circle's now issued north of $7 billion of USDC on Solana in preparation for even more institutional adoption. And here's why this matters. Stablecoins are no longer just crypto infrastructure, they are now global financial infrastructure, and increasingly they're running on Solana. Over $11 billion in stablecoins issued, over 3 million daily users, and over 200 million monthly stablecoin transactions. So when we see stablecoin issuance going absolutely parabolic, this is yet another strong signal that Altseason is about to kick off. Here's Visa CEO explaining stablecoin adoption.
We've been embracing and building for years, preparing for this moment. The Genius Act has now passed the Senate, as you know, and is expected to pass the House. I think that'll give regulatory clarity to stablecoins. And we've been embracing stablecoins.
Right, beyond stablecoin Summer, another clear indicator as to why Sol could outperform this cycle is of course the RWA game. Now, Solana's only had about 3% of the total RWA market share, but this is rapidly growing as we can see here. From money market funds led by giants like BlackRock and Franklin Templeton, to equities like popular stocks coming on-chain, with Remora, Xstocks, Ondo, and Superstate, Solana's RWA future is bright. And of course, finally, we have a bonus indicator, also courtesy of this cycle. The brand new Solana staking ETF that launched just yesterday is another bullish indicator for Solana. Here's a very simple analogy. Staking is like insurance for two reasons. It lets the asset holders secure the underlying network by staking, and a staking ETF signals a vote of confidence by the SEC. Just like no serious investor would buy expensive property without insuring it, no institutional desk is going to go heavy on Sol without the staking infrastructure or vehicles like ETFs in place which afford them certain protections. Now, with the first Solana staking ETF by Rex shares being approved ahead of schedule, that insurance layer seems to be arriving, and it could unlock serious capital. So Altseason hasn't started yet. Good. We need to watch indicators like stablecoin issuance and understand how rotations are likely to happen. And of course, keep a very close eye on BTC dominance in the coming days and weeks. Now, a quick reminder that none of the information in this video is legal advice, financial advice, investment advice, or any kind of advice. For more updates from across the Solana ecosystem, you can of course subscribe to Solana Floor, and I'll see you next time for more of the very latest.